She turned $1,000 into millions. The market called her flawless. People followed every move she made. Then one confident decision erased years of success in a single night. This is the story no trader wants to tell. Claire Dalton remembered the first $1,000 like a song that never leaves your head. It came from late shifts at a diner in Phoenix, and from saying no to small comforts, day after day. She was 26, tired, and curious, and she liked systems more than dreams. At night she watched market charts on an old laptop. She did not chase noise, she chased patterns. She made a rule list on paper: small risk, clear exit. No revenge trades, no impulsive moves. She opened a simple brokerage account. She bought one share of a calm blue-chip company. Then she sold it a week later for a tiny profit. She smiled, not because it was big, but because it was clean. She repeated the process, slow, careful, steady. She learned to read earnings reports. She learned the language of balance sheets. She read books with worn covers. She listened to interviews on her bus rides. She built a habit of writing down every trade, the reason, the plan, and the feeling. And she built another habit to stop when she felt too sure. Months passed, and the account grew, not fast, but honest. $10 became 50, 50 became a few hundred, and a few hundred became a few thousand. Then a sudden drop in the market came, and many people panicked. Claire did not feel brave, she felt prepared. She bought quality when others fled, and she sold into the rebound with calm hands. It was the first time she felt a new identity forming. Not a diner worker, not a lucky beginner, but a trader with discipline. She did not tell friends, she did not post online, she just kept stacking quiet wins, each one like a brick. Then on a warm Friday, her balance crossed 10,000, and she whispered to herself, "This can become something real." She also whispered another thing: do not get arrogant, and for a long time, she listened to that warning. She rented a tiny room with better light. She pinned her rules above the desk. She promised she would never borrow money to trade, not a dollar. She wanted growth that could survive stress, and when a coworker at the diner teased her, calling it a gamble, Claire simply nodded. She did not argue, she just kept studying, because the market, she believed, rewards patience more than volume. 2 years later the laptop became a proper workstation, and the diner apron stayed in the closet. Claire's account had grown past 100,000, and she left her job with a polite smile. She did not buy luxury, she bought time. Mornings were for research, afternoons for execution, evenings for review. She tracked every result in a spreadsheet. She measured drawdowns, she measured win rate, and she treated losses like tuition. Not like insults. She kept her position sizes small, even when she felt confident, and because of that, the account kept rising. She found an edge in boring places, in companies with steady cash flow, and in moments when headlines were loud but facts were quiet. She also learned options slowly, with respect. She used them first as insurance, then as precise tools. A simple call spread here, a cautious put hedge there, never a reckless bet, never a blind leap. And when she made a mistake, she cut it fast. She wrote down what went wrong, and she moved on. Her friends started to notice, not from her clothes, but from her calm. She spoke differently, she planned differently, she had a sense of direction. She helped her mother pay off an old loan, she repaired her own credit, she moved into a clean one-bedroom apartment, and she kept the same rituals: coffee, headlines, filings, notes. By the end of year 3 the account touched 500,000. And a small online forum began to whisper her name. Someone had seen her posts in a study group. Someone had tracked her calls. They called her method surgical. They called her timing unreal. Claire tried to stay private, but she also felt a spark of pride, so she started sharing general lessons, not picks, just process. Risk first, thesis second, patience always. People loved it, and in that love, a new pressure grew, because when strangers clap, they also expect a show, and Claire, without noticing, began to step onto a stage. She told herself she could handle attention, she had rules, she had discipline, but she did not yet understand how applause can bend a person, even a careful one. The first invitation came from a small finance channel, then another, then a bigger one. Claire said yes to one interview, then 2, then 10. Her voice was steady, her words were simple, and her track record looked like a straight climb. Viewers loved the story, a woman from a diner turning charts into freedom, They asked for a name to follow, so she created one, Claire Dalton, Market Mentor. She opened a public profile. She posted lessons, she posted screenshots of returns, and the audience multiplied. Brands reached out, platforms offered partnerships. A podcast host named Ethan Brooks invited her to his studio in New York. The city felt electric, fast cabs, bright billboards, and conversations that never slept. Claire rented a small place in Manhattan for a month, just to try it. She told herself it was for networking, for opportunity, for growth, but it also felt good to be seen. After the show, her phone filled with messages, people calling her brilliant, people calling her fearless, and a quiet part of her enjoyed that word, fearless. She kept trading with the same framework, but she increased size a little, not because she needed to, but because it seemed expected, and the market kept rewarding her. She caught a clean trend in semiconductors, she rode a recovery in retail, she shorted a weak airline before bad guidance. Wins stacked, headlines followed. Soon a business magazine wrote a profile, calling her the most consistent retail trader of the year. They used a phrase that stuck, she never misses. Claire laughed when she read it, but she did not correct it, because a myth is comfortable when it favors you. She formed a small company, Dalton Analytics. She hired Nora Lane as an assistant, organized, sharp, loyal, and Jamal Price as a junior analyst, numbers-focused, cautious, honest. They worked in a modest office with glass walls and quiet keyboards. Claire set rules for the team. No hype, no exaggeration, respect risk. Yet the more success arrived, the more her inner voice softened, the voice that once warned her, "Do not get arrogant." It did not vanish, it just got quieter, and in that quiet, confidence began to turn into certainty. The account crossed 1 million in a calm spring, then 3 million before the next winter, and the numbers started to look like a different language. Claire did not feel rich in the way people imagine. She felt responsible. She paid taxes early, she kept cash reserves, she diversified, but she also started living like her future was guaranteed. A better apartment, a better wardrobe, dinners with investors who nodded at her every sentence. She launched a paid newsletter, not flashy, just clean charts and clear reasoning. Subscriptions climbed, and so did expectations. People stopped asking how she managed risk, they started asking what she would buy next, and some of them treated her words like orders. Claire tried to remind them, this is education, not instructions, but the crowd heard what it wanted. Every time she posted a win, comments poured in, queen of the market, never wrong, can't miss. Ethan Brooks brought her back for a second episode, and the studio treated her like a star. She smiled for photos, she laughed at jokes, and she spoke with a boldness she did not used to have. She said things like, I can read the tape, I can feel the shift. The clip went viral, and with viral fame came imitation. Accounts popped up copying her style, selling fake courses, claiming to be her. Claire fought back with lawyers, she protected her brand, she built walls, and behind those walls she worked harder. She started waking at 4, she chased pre-market news, she stared at screens until late. She told herself it was discipline, but it was also fear of slowing down, fear of being ordinary again. The team noticed. Nora suggested taking a weekend off, Jamal suggested lowering leverage. Claire nodded, but she did not change, because the market kept giving her proof, profits kept coming, and proof can be addictive. She began to believe her own legend, and legends do not like doubt. So she pushed doubts aside, and she called it confidence. By the time the account touched 10 million, she felt not just skilled, but untouchable, and that feeling set the stage for one decision that would rewrite her story. In October, a new name dominated every screen, Asteron Labs, a fast-growing tech company with a grand reveal scheduled. Its stock climbed every day like it had no ceiling. Anchors on television called it historic momentum, influencers called it a once-in-a-decade ride, and Ethan Brooks invited a panel to discuss it. Claire watched the segment and felt a sharp itch. She had not touched Asteron, she had avoided it. Too much hype. Too many hopes, too little cash flow. She opened the filings, she highlighted risks, thin margins, aggressive forecasts, heavy spending. She told Nora and Jamal, we stay away. Jamal agreed at once. Nora looked relieved. Claire even posted a public note, caution, do your own research, do not chase, and the comments exploded. Some thanked her, some mocked her. The stock climbed again the next day, and the mockery got louder. People wrote, "Claire missed the biggest move, Claire lost her touch." It was silly, it was random noise, yet it landed in her chest. She had been praised as perfect, and now she was being tested. She told herself she did not care, but she checked the price again, and again. She imagined the profits she could have made, and she imagined the headlines if she joined in one. Then another catalyst appeared: earnings on Thursday after the close. Options implied a huge swing. Claire studied the order flow, she studied analyst notes, she studied social chatter. She found signs that institutions were positioning for good news. She also found signs of risk, but she framed them as manageable. On Ethan's podcast, the guest said, "Anyone who is not long Asteron is asleep," and the studio laughed. Claire laughed too, but later, alone at her desk, she did not feel amused, she felt challenged, and a challenged ego can disguise itself as a brilliant idea. She began to draft a plan, not a small plan, a statement plan, a trade that would prove she was still the one to follow. And the more she imagined it, the more it felt inevitable. She told herself she was simply adapting, but deep down she wanted a win that people would remember. On Thursday morning, Claire walked into the office early, the air still cool, the streets still sleepy. She gathered Nora and Jamal and presented the thesis. Asteron would surprise to the upside. The market was underpricing growth. Jamal asked about a hedge, maybe a protective spread, maybe a smaller size. Nora asked about worst case. What if guidance disappointed? What if the swing was down? Claire answered smoothly. She had rehearsed it in her mind. She said she would manage risk. She said she would keep rules. She said she would not be reckless. Then she opened the trade ticket, and her hands moved faster than her caution. She bought short-dated call options, deep and heavy. She added more, then more. Because the premium looked cheap compared to the dream she pictured, she used margin for the first time in months, not for necessity, but for scale. She told herself it was a calculated use of capital. Jamal's expression tightened. He suggested trimming. Claire smiled and said, "After we get the move, we will trim." She recorded a confident video for subscribers. She spoke about conviction and timing. She avoided saying the position size, but she let the tone imply strength. The market drifted upward during the day. Asteron ticked higher, and the office mood warmed. Messages from followers arrived. "You called it. You are a genius. We are with you." Claire felt the praise like fuel. At 3:59 p.m. She glanced at the unrealized profit and thought, "This is already working." She ignored the small voice that asked, "What if it does not?" After the closing bell, the room grew quiet. They watched the clock. They watched the news feed. Claire's heart was steady on the outside, but inside it beat like a drum. This was not a normal trade. This was a verdict, and she had placed her own reputation on the line. She did not see it as pride. She saw it as destiny, and that is how dangerous choices often feel: clean, logical, and somehow deserved. She leaned back and said, "We will be fine," and the words sounded like a promise she could not control. At 4:05 p.m. the earnings release appeared. A few lines, a few numbers, a few surprises. Revenue beat expectations, but margins were thinner. The headline looked good, yet the details looked fragile. Asteron's stock jumped for a minute, and Claire exhaled. Then it stalled, then it slipped. A new line hit the feed. Forward guidance slightly lower, supply costs rising, rollout delayed by a quarter. The crowd's mood flipped in seconds. The price started falling, 5%, 8, 12, Claire refreshed her screen as if it could change reality. Jamal whispered, "We should reduce, we can salvage." Claire's cursor hovered, but the option spreads widened. Fills became ugly. She told herself, "Wait for the call, wait for the explanation." The conference call began. Executives spoke confidently, but their words were careful. They avoided big promises. They praised the long term. They softened the short term. The market heard one thing: uncertainty. The stock kept sliding. Claire watched her position shrink, then bleed, then collapse. The unrealized profit turned into a loss, then into a heavy loss, then into a number that looked impossible. She tried to exit. The fills were worse than she imagined. She tried again. But the market was moving faster than her clicks. Her phone buzzed with alerts, margin warnings, risk notifications, system messages with sterile language. she felt heat rise in her face, not anger, just shock. The people in the office stayed silent, waiting for her decision. And Claire, who had always been decisive, hesitated, because hesitation was the last thing her legend allowed. Finally, she closed part of the position at terrible prices, then another part, but much of it was already damaged beyond repair. After hours, trading ended with Asteron far below the close, and the options she had bought with confidence now sat near zero. Claire stared at the final quote as if it were a typo. One evening, one report, one oversized trade, and years of careful bricks had turned to dust. She did not cry, she simply sat very still, and for the first time in a long time, she heard that old warning clearly: do not get arrogant, and it arrived too late. The night did not end when the market closed, it continued in messages and numbers. Claire logged in again, and the account summary loaded slowly, like it was ashamed. The equity line was broken, the available buying power was gone, and a bright red notice showed obligations she had never carried before. Because leverage does not only amplify gains, it amplifies responsibility. Her broker required funds, and the amount was larger than her liquid cash. She read the notice twice, then a third time. She called the support line, and a calm representative repeated policy in a calm voice: no threats, no drama, just rules. Claire hung up and sat on the edge of her couch. Outside, Manhattan sounded normal: traffic, laughter, distant music, as if the world did not care that her identity had cracked. She thought about her followers, about the comments calling her perfect. She thought about Nora and Jamal, about the team that trusted her judgment. She thought about her mother, who believed she was safe now, and she thought about Ethan Brooks, who would surely ask for a reaction clip. She opened her phone and saw new messages. Some were worried, some were curious, some were cruel. She did not answer any of them. She walked to the kitchen, poured water, and noticed her hand was shaking, not from fear of losing money. She had lost money before, but from fear of losing face. She realized how much she had been trading her own image, how much she had depended on being the one who always knew, and now she knew something else. The market does not care about your story, it only cares about price. Near midnight she opened her notebook, the same kind she used in Phoenix, and she wrote one sentence: I size for applause, not for survival. Then she wrote another: tomorrow I tell the truth. It was the first plan that felt honest in weeks, and it was also the beginning of humility. She slept little, waking to check futures, as if a rebound could erase the math. But each check only confirmed the same reality. Her best skill now would not be prediction, it would be repair. Friday morning arrived with pale light and heavy air. Claire entered the office and found Nora already there, quiet, ready. Jamal arrived a few minutes later with printouts, eyes focused, jaw tight. Claire did not pretend, she did not soften it. She said, Asteron moved against us, the position was too large, the losses are severe, and we have obligations to address. She showed them the statements, the margin notice, the numbers in plain view. Nora covered her mouth for a second, then lowered her hand and asked, what do we do now? Jamal asked, can we negotiate terms? Can we limit damage? Can we stabilize? Claire nodded yes, and she laid out steps. First, freeze all new trades, no hero attempts, no doubling down. Second, contact counsel, review exposure, communicate with the broker. Third, pause the newsletter and courses. Fourth, issue refunds where possible, and cancel future billing. Fifth, publish a clear public statement, no excuses, no blaming, just facts and accountability. Nora asked if the company would survive. Claire answered, the brand may not, but we will handle this with integrity. Then she did something she had avoided for years. She admitted emotion. She said, I let the praise get into my decisions, I ignored the team, and I broke my own rule about leverage. Jamal looked at her and said, thank you for saying it, now we act. They spent the day on calls, broker, lawyer, accountant. Claire spoke to each person with steady honesty. She asked for payment terms. She asked for time. She offered cooperation. Some answers were strict, some were flexible, all were real. At noon Ethan Brooks texted, are you okay? Can we talk? Claire replied with one sentence, I will speak when I have the full picture. She did not want a dramatic clip, she wanted a clean record. Late afternoon she recorded a video for her audience. She avoided hype, she avoided tears. She said, I made a mistake. I used too much size, I will make this right. The comments were mixed, but something strange happened. The honest one stood out. People said, "Thank you for being real," and Claire felt a new kind of respect, quieter, but healthier. She turned to Nora and Jamal and said, "We rebuild slowly, or we leave with dignity. Either way, we will not lie." The weeks that followed were not dramatic, they were practical, and that was harder. Claire sold the Manhattan lease, she moved back to Arizona, she downsized everything, she kept a small desk, one monitor, and the old notebook with the rules pinned above it. She took a job at a local advisory firm, a quiet role focused on research. It paid less than her peak months, but it paid steadily, and steady became beautiful again. She arranged a repayment plan, she cut expenses, she cooked at home, she walked more, she slept more, she stopped watching social feeds for a while, not as punishment, but as protection. When people asked if she would return to the spotlight, she said, "Not yet." She began mentoring a small group of beginners for free at a community center. She taught the boring parts, position sizing, journaling, patience, humility, and she told her own story without glamour. She said, "Success can make you forget that the market is larger than you. It can make you think rules are for other people, and the market corrects that belief with simple math." One afternoon, months later, Ethan Brooks called. He asked if she wanted to come back on the show. Redemption episode, big audience, big buzz. Claire looked at the phone, then looked at her notebook. She said, "I will come, but only if the message is risk, not hype." Ethan agreed. On the episode she spoke slowly, she used short sentences. She said, "I was not invincible. I was just lucky and disciplined, then I got distracted by applause." She explained how one oversized trade can undo years of work. She explained how humility is not a slogan, it is a strategy. After the show she did not gain 1,000,000 new followers, but she received a few letters that mattered. People wrote, "I avoided a bad decision because of what you said." Claire kept those notes in a drawer, and when her account finally returned to a healthy, modest level, she did not celebrate with a headline. She celebrated by closing her laptop at 5, making dinner, and feeling grateful for a lesson that cost her everything, and gave her something better, a quiet respect for risk, and a life that did not need to look perfect to be real.